Okay. I've got the United Front for School Governing Bodies. I've got Federation of Association of Governing Bodies of South Africa. I've got the Governance Alliance. I've got the South African National Association for Special Education and South African Sarpa, South African Principals Organization. Which one did I not mention? Is it FEDSAS? No.
United Front for School Governing Bodies.
Oh, it's United Front, ne? All right. Okay, then it's okay. Let us not waste the time then. Can I please ask the members of the committee who are in the meeting to please introduce themselves? And may they please use put their video on.
Good morning, Chairperson. Good morning, everybody. My name is Suela Elvis, member of the Portfolio Committee.
Any other member who's in the meeting?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Renelo Mashavela, member of this committee. Thank you.
Morning, everyone. My name is Mr. Speaker, alternate member of the committee from MFP. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair. And
then what's wrong with the ANC regalia now? Huh?
Sorry about that.
Take it out. We want me to go and take the EFF regalia now.
No. Let me take it off. I was in a meeting.
Okay, take it off. Honorable Aduns.
Honorable Malachi, are you in the meeting, Honorable Malachi?
But my name is Nobiselo Aduns. I'm a member of the Portfolio Committee.
Thank you, Honorable Aduns. Any other member?
Honorable Malachi, the member of the Portfolio Committee.
No. Hello. Morning, members.
Those are all the members of the committee to date. I have two apologies for Honorable Mbekwayo and Honorable Sukers. So present in the meeting is yourself, Honorable Mbinko Gigaba, Honorable Aduans, Honorable Siwela, Honorable Malachi, and Honorable Sibisi. Thank you, Chair.
So what about Honorable Mashavela, Mr. Brown? Is she absent?
My humblest apologies, Honorable Mashabela.
You want to fight with the fighters?
As I believe, Llewellyn, you know the fighter is in a fighting mood today. Don't start.
And I wonder why she's always absent. Now she comes with a fighting spirit.
No, she's
Fighter,
not absent.
You must withdraw, Aduns.
Well, you must withdraw, Aduns. I agree
from
with
the
fighting.
meeting.
I withdraw,
No.
my fighter, I withdraw.
Please, just withdraw. Okay. Can I then ask members, the leadership of the United Front for School Governing Bodies to introduce themselves? Everyone that is in the meeting, just put your video on so that we can be able to see one another. United Front for School Governing Bodies.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, but I can't see you.
This thing is not clear. I will try and open the video. It's Eric Matlang, National Deputy Secretary, School Governing for United Front for School Governing Bodies.
Thank you. Anyone else?
We are also trying to get Theo, the one that is going to present. He is struggling trying to connect. As soon as he connects,
So
we'll be able to.
it's yourself alone now in the meeting.
Yes, currently it's me. I'm trying to locate and Theo, the one that's going to do a presentation.
Okay, thank you very much. Can we get then the Federation of Association of Governing Bodies of South Africa?
Good morning, Chair and honourable members. Paul Colditz here. I am the CEO of FEDSAS, Federation of Governing Bodies of South African Schools. We also have in the meeting our national chairperson, the Reverend Sean Mellows, and I'll ask him to switch on his camera. And then we have our Deputy CEO, Dr. Yaku Deacon, who is now greeting you. Then we also have in the meeting our Legal and Support Center Manager, Ms. Joanne van der Merwe, who is now waving to you. And then we have Mr. Paul Renken, who is our Corporate and Business Development Manager, and he is now waving to you. Further, we have Manager of our Center for Technology, Mr. Rian van der Berg. I'll ask him to open his camera. He's also at another commitment, so I don't see him. He was in the meeting earlier. And then finally, we have there Mr. Rian van der Berg with the sunglasses on. And then we have two ladies, our National Operations Manager. First of all, Ms. Constanze van der Walt. She'll now be waving to you. And then Ms. Rihanna Vos, who is also now waving to you. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you so much. Can we move to Governance Alliance? Governance Alliance. Is there no one from Governance Alliance?
They don't seem to be in the meeting, Chair.
No, Chair. Ms. Callahan is in the meeting. I'm not sure whether she's having problems with the mic.
Sorry, I am in the meeting.
Here we go. Governance Alliance.
Okay, ma'am, can you introduce yourself then?
Sorry, I'm not quite sure why my video won't go on. My name is Kathy Callahan, and I'm the Secretary of Governors Alliance. I missed the apologies, and I'd like to give apologies for our chairperson, Mr. Scott, who will not be able to attend this morning. Thank you very much. Good morning to everyone in the meeting.
Can we get the South African National Association for Special Education? Are the people here? Association for Special Education? South African Principals Association?
Good morning, honorable members and ladies and gentlemen.
I am Linda Shezi, the Sarpa National General Secretary and the President for the KZN chapter of South African Principals Association. With us, we have got, and I'm going to ask them just to switch on their videos as we go through their names. We have got our National President, Dr. George Mutsuneng. We then have from Gauteng, Mr. Tim Hlongwane. From Free State, we've got Mrs. Mui. I'm not too sure whether she is able to switch on her video. From Limpopo, we've got Mr. Ramulumo. From the Eastern Cape, we've got Clinton Sadler. From Mpumalanga, we have got the Deputy President, Gerben Jansen van Riesenberg, and Pastor Neva Ntane, the Secretary of Mpumalanga. From Northern Cape, we have got Lebu Malchas, the President of the Northern Cape. From Northwest, we should be joined by the Northwest President, Isaac Pila, and the Secretary, Tiny Diale. I'm not too sure if they've managed to join us at the moment. And finally, from the Western Cape, the President of the Western Cape chapter, Ms. Bronwyn Fisher. Thank you, everyone, and good morning.
Thank you very much. Can we get the United Front for School Governing Bodies?
Here we've done them. We need GBF and NASGB.
I couldn't get that, Llewellyn.
We still need NASGB, GBF, and SANASE. The National Association of School Governing Bodies, Governing Body Federation, and SANASE.
Okay.
Good morning.
Morning, Pa.
Yes, it's a National Association of School Governing Bodies, NASGB. My name is Matakanya. I'm the General Secretary of National Association of School Governing Bodies. With me is the President of National Association of School Governing Bodies, Comrade E. Maseko. And we have got also the Chairperson, M. Lekata. We have got additional member, Francina Tsoku. The other leadership, national leadership, could not make it. And these are the four national leadership who are present in the meeting. Thank you very much, Chairperson. Well, I don't know quickly, just to know us quickly who we are and what we do. Quickly, as I said, we are National Association of School Governing
We are going to come to that, Baba. We are just doing introductions now.
Okay, thank you very much, Chairperson.
All right. Okay. Can I give to Sanasa then?
Before that, Chair.
Oh, okay. All right. That a bit.
The General Secretary has forgotten me. My name is Monga. His name is Peter, all the way from Eastern Cape, member of the National Association of Sgb Leadership. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much. GBF. Anyone from GBF?
Good
Sorry,
morning,
GBF.
Honorable Chairperson. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Thank you. I'm Anthea Seresto, and I am the CEO of the Governing Body Foundation. And we have with us in today's meeting our officers in the provinces. I have Dr. Elna Dalanga from KwaZulu-Natal. I wonder if she can show her picture. We have Miss Wendy Elshoff from Gauteng. Dr. Peter Manser from the Eastern Cape. Dr. Malcolm Fenter from the Western Cape. And I hope we have Mr. Cecil Skorji also from Gauteng. Those are our members with us today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Sanase.
Chairperson, Sanase is Mr. Thandi August, but I don't see him in the meeting. He was here earlier. He may be having challenges with connectivity. He might join us a bit later, okay? That is from Sanase.
Okay. No, it's fine. You'll just let us know when he gets in the meeting, Llewellyn. Members, these are the governing bodies that we would be interacting with today. So without really wasting time, it's Friday. Can I allow members to adopt the agenda?
Chairperson,
Yes, and Tateswela.
I move for the adoption of the agenda.
Thank you very much, Tateswela. Any seconder?
Eric Masang from United Front, I second.
No, members of the committee. Can members please second the agenda?
I second, Chair.
I should
And once I
yes.
second this, I second.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. No, I think we were doing the exercise of introduction precisely because we are meeting for the first time. We have never met before. So as the committee, we have agreed that it is very vital to meet with the stakeholders that work directly with the Department of Basic Education as well, so that we can understand who you are and the relations you are having with the department as well. We are all actually stakeholders that work with the Department of Basic Education. And for that reason, now and then, I think it's important that we meet to share ideas, because our interest is one. Our interest is quality education for a child of South Africa. So from all angles where we are coming from, the objective is one. We might be coming from different ideologies, but we are having one objective. And that is the reason for this meeting. It is so unfortunate that we must meet via a virtual platform, and it's our first meeting, but we are meeting via a virtual platform. It's because of the situation that we are finding ourselves in the country, all of us. And for that reason, then I'm not intending really for us as members to waste time, but rather listen and give an audience to yourselves. I don't know which presentation is ready. Is United Front for School Governing Bodies ready with the presentation so that we give you to present to us? who will be leading us with the presentation of United Front?
While I'm trying to load it and it's difficult side, can you get another one while you are still busy, ma'am? Please, madam.
Okay. Who is ready? Who is ready with the presentation?
We are
Fetsas?
ready. National Association of Schools ready.
Yeah. Chair, can I just say a word by way of introduction from Fetsas?
You don't have. You are not going to do it by a presentation, Ms. Colditz?
No, thank you, Chair. What we're going to do, Chair, we have submitted a joint presentation between FETSAS and NASGB. We've agreed that we'll do the presentation together. And with your permission, Chair, I would request the committee to allow Mr. Matakanya to do the first introduction of the presentation. Then immediately thereafter, it will be our national chairperson, the Reverend Sean Mellows, and I'll then take over from Reverend Sean Mellows. So, Chair, if you are agreeable, that is what we intend doing.
No, that is fine with us. You can proceed in that order.
Thank you, Chair. I then hand over to Mr. Matakanya.
Thank you very much, Comrade Paul. Thank you very much, Chairperson and honorable members. As we said, we are National Association of School Governing Bodies. Our presentation will be one, who are we, what do we relate with, how do we relate with the Department of Basic Education, and then the challenges that we are facing. As Paul has already said, we have a joint presentation. I'll just make emphasis because you have that presentation with you over that end. And firstly is that we are National Association of School Governing Bodies. Well, quickly is that our objective as National Association of School Governing Body is to improve the quality of education at public schools and instill public confidence in public schools, to strive for the fulfillment of unitary, non-racial, non-sexist, and democratic education system, to unite school governing bodies across geographical, racial, religious, ethnical, language, and class orientation, to help in establishment of school governing bodies, and to encourage committed involvement in public schooling governance, and to promote the interests of socially and economically depressed schools and strive to redress imbalances between schools. I think it's just part of the objectives, what we are, who we are. So we have got 5 pillars to address those: building the organization, relate with other organizations, advocacy through campaigns, capacity building of NSGB, create conducive, or NSGBs, create conducive environment for quality education. And Chair, I want to apologize. I really should not forget. I want to apologize not to have introduced Comrade Peter. He's a national member, as I was introducing all my comrades there. Comrade Peter is from Eastern Cape, as we said, and we relate well with the Department of Education, DBE. We relate really well. We meet regularly, and then we differ. Really, they understand that we at times differ in defense of school governing bodies, in defense of the organization, but in promotion of the quality education in the Republic. So it is not just a roasty relationship, but we support one another. But where we differ, we allow to differ. Now, challenges. We have submitted challenges together with our comrades there. FETSAS, we work together well because we share the constituency and we share challenges in education. So now our joint presentation, I will not really read it because you have with it there. It will just go through the emphasis, perhaps the introduction. We wish, just the introduction, we wish to thank the Portfolio Committee and all its members for reaching out to us and creating this opportunity for us to engage with the committee. It is so happened that this historic event is also taking place during other historic moments in schooling education in South Africa. The triennial public school governing body election. This is obvious, a very busy period in the calendar of Sgb associations, and it has therefore limited our opportunity to collaborate and prepare a single presentation on behalf of all Sgb associations. Nevertheless, FESAS and NSGB have been able to agree on a single presentation on behalf of both organizations. We hope to engage with the committee based on this briefly highlighted in this presentation. Now, I think the most challenge that we have in schooling is corruption and dysfunctionality. Corruption and dysfunctionality, underperformance at many levels in school education is a serious concern to us, NASCOP and FESAS. The Folmic report on the selling of posts is one of the examples, and it appears to us that this report has just disappeared from the radar. Recent allegations regarding corruption in procurement of personal protective equipments and other resources is a bad reflection on education generally, and is not conducive to building and maintaining an education system, inspiring children to lead value-driven lives and to become stand-up citizens of the country. Dysfunctionality and underperforming provinces, districts, and schools are also huge concern to us. In school context, this destroys the hope and dreams of children, families, and communities. It leads to overcrowding in high pressure and successful schools that will eventually run the risk of collapsing under the pressure. Now, then we have got leadership and governance at level, but also in particular, then you have got that presentation with you there. I will not go through that. You'll just go and show that they are, because of time, I will not go through those. School infrastructure and resources. You also have the presentation there. You see how we are frustrated, and we hope that the Portfolio Committee really will rise to the occasion and support us fully to address all these challenges. Influence of unions. Influence of unions, you know that if I to give an example, this influence again reared its head in the impasse caused by the refusal of unions to participate in the annual national assessment. You remember the question of SASA, where we're supposed to start now assessing our children at lower standards. Then they said, no, they don't want this thing. They don't want this tool. So the tool was taken off the radar. Staffing, particularly grade R's and LSN schools, it's a serious concern about staffing. Grade R, I think at grade R level, really and truly Portfolio Committee, we want serious qualified people to build a terrible foundation. I mean, a formidable foundation, because when you look at the cognitive level of our children, that's where it starts. But if we miss it there, then we shall have missed it all over. But now we feel that the Portfolio Committee will really take this very seriously and help us, because we are really becoming ill. Now, 6, then the question of elections, we are really disappointed that these elections are not known. They're supposed to have been prepared as from 2018. These elections, the current SGBs are the SGBs that were elected from 2018. So we'd hope that the Department of Basic Education, from that time to this time, they would have prepared, they would have made regulations, they would have, although well, at one stage we'll understand that the COVID was a problem. However, but the COVID as it is, then it would have had the preparation of elections. The minister pronounced on Monday, this past Monday, and we hope then the MECs are going to make pronouncement this week. But when you look at that, there is no really preparation. There is no organization on the ground. We don't hear any noise. There is nearly no noise on the ground. And we hope a portfolio committee can intervene so that these elections, although it is legislated that it will move from 1st March to the 30th of April, but we hope that the portfolio committee will intervene so that there is noise on the ground, parents are made aware, advocacy campaigns, so that parents go in majority to vote. Parents go to the schools and vote correct people. But how do they vote for correct people if they don't know what is happening, if they don't know the modes that they are going to use and all those things? So I think the portfolio committee really will intervene into that quickly. And then capacity building of leadership and development. I think a good school is leadership. If the school does not have leadership, forget. But not only a school. We mean the management of the school. We mean the school governing bodies. We mean the district level. We mean the second level. So I think the portfolio committee must really intervene at that level. Because if we don't have decisive leadership, then forget about quality education in our schools. And we are talking about all those levels, maybe even at the provincial levels and even national level. I think you really have to intervene if we want quality education in our lifetime. Then B2, opportunity brought about by the COVID. Well, COVID, then you know that what COVID did to us. It has shown that there is terrible disparities in South Africa. There are schools that do not have water, do not even have running water to date. There are schools that do not have abolition to date. Then if it was not COVID, then people would not have been aware, because COVID has got its own standard. It says, then we must wash our heads regularly. So if a school does not have running water, how does the teachers, how do the children, how do the school government, the community of that particular school regularly wash their hands? And abolition as well. So I think this really, we are talking to the portfolio committee to ensure that we don't really want cases of Komapi incidents where a child died in a peddler tree and all those. We don't really want those situations anymore in South Africa. So I think COVID, we must see COVID in that light, to say it has shown us where are the disparities, particularly the poorest of the poor schools, the township schools, the rural, the deep rural, the working class. Those are schools that are suffering. So we feel that when budget is to be made, it must really be favored for those schools in particular. And not for, I'm not saying, well, the rich schools must be also forgotten. No, no. I'm just saying, but the chunk of the budget must ensure that it addresses a new schooling model, technology, digital. Then my comrades there will talk about it. And then language in education. Then will also it's a barrier. It's a serious barrier. Language is a very serious barrier. Language in education. So I think we really have to address it. You will know that the importance of mother tongue education is a well-established research piece. About quality education, then we must look into the question of language. So we really have to address the question of language very seriously, so that we know that finally I'll just hash on that. My comrades will add there funding of schooling. Then for instance, the norms and standards has created a platform for us as associations to access money in schools, but provinces are just refusing to release that money. They just refuse totally to release that money as well. But funding generally, I think the portfolio committee must really intervene into question of funding, so that we know that our education will be viable, then we'll achieve to address the question of the
network is getting poorer.
Leaving township schools and are going to look for the resources. They don't really have resources. So we feel that once that has been addressed, then we are no more going to have this overcrowded, where particular schools are becoming oversubscribed, but some schools are closed, whereas we need space. Very finally important, I think, when I introduced the one of the pillars of national association was the question of the creation of quality education for all. And we would finally like to address the question: what is quality education? What is quality education? We have seen and experienced what quality is not. We have way too much for that in have an understanding of what we mean with quality education. This honorable committee is ideally placed to initiate a quota on common understanding of quality and commitment by all South Africans to unite behind vision of quality to every single child in the country. Our constitution calls upon us to improve the quality of life of all citizens and free the potential of each person. Now is the time. We thank you. Thank you very much, Chairperson. I just want to respect time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ramatakanye.
Thank you, Madam Chair and honorable members. Dr. Sean Mellows here from the National Chairman of FEDSAS, Federation of School Governing Bodies in South Africa. Mr. Matakanye has very impassionately introduced our presentation that we sent through yesterday already. I want to just make a background statement to the portfolio committee that lies heavy on my heart. As you see there, we've put 6 present realities and 6 present opportunities, but these are really symptoms of what are challenges in education. Underlying all the role players and all the stakeholders in education is trust, and trust, as you know, is the cement that leads to unity, and in unity lies strength and blessing. And sorry, I'm addressing the parliamentary committee. So politics lies in your hearts and in your job description. But I want to say, if only politics, self-gain and self-advancement were removed from education, and that the best for learners would drive all our decisions, then, and if that would be the basis for all our discussions, then all of these symptoms that we're looking at and that we bring to your attention today would be challenges that we could overcome instead of points to fight and defend, which unfortunately happens in the provinces. It happens between the stakeholders. The sad thing that is in these statements that I'm making, it's my opinion, and you'll be sitting there and making a decision as to whether it's right or wrong. And we continue to fight in education over right and wrong instead of what is the wise thing to do. In answering what is the wise thing to do, I need to take into consideration what brought me to this point yesterday. What happened yesterday? What has brought me to this point? And that is one of the filters that I have to decide what's wise today. What are my present limitations and my present possibilities? That's my reality today. And I make a decision, a wise decision, not a right or wrong, but a wise decision based on my present reality. And then what do I want to be remembered for? That's the tomorrow. What's the legacy? What are the learners that I'm going to produce? What are the wise decisions I make today that will produce the learners that I'm hoping to be my legacy? And that's tomorrow. So I might be presented with an exceptionally good financial investment opportunity today. But because of my present cash flow and because of what has brought me to this point, it may not be the wise thing, even though it may appear to be a right thing to do. And I think if we would focus on that as the cement that unites us in education as the role players, these opportunities will become opportunities that we can overcome and we can grab, and we will stop fighting one another as to whether it's right or wrong. That's all I want to say by way of an introduction to what our CEO is going to take us through further. Thank you, Mr. Colditz.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, again, from our side, thank you very much for this opportunity. The last time we've met with the Portfolio Committee, we were invited to address the Volmink report, but the last time we had a similar engagement to this one today with the Portfolio Committee was 2012. And I really wish that going forward, there would be more regular, similar engagement, because the 12 themes that we've given you together with NASGB, each individual one of them requires debate and scrutiny, and requires solutions that would take us for an entire day if we just addressed one of them. I want to focus on the present opportunities, present and future opportunities, the most critical of which is capacity building and leadership development. We have invested from our side as FETSAS much of our very limited resources in developing capacity amongst our members, but also leadership generally. In this process, we started presentations and webinars 3 years ago already. Last year alone, we did 140 under circumstances where we were forced to work from home, where schools were closed. We provided the information. We provided guidance to schools on how to operate in circumstances where the Department of Basic Education and the ministry, although they did a good job, were silent. They did not communicate with South Africa about their plans. We had to do that communication on their behalf. So this year, we're embarking upon a huge drive to capacitate school governing bodies, our own members, obviously, first of all, But then we've decided also to open up, to reach out to other communities, to other schools. So I'm going to ask the Deputy CEO, Dr. Jaco Deacon, just to share with you very briefly what we plan to do in terms of capacity building for the rest of the year after the elections. And he will invite members of your committee to also join these sessions we will be presenting, or at least some of them. So it's over to Dr. Deacon. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I've just shared a few links in that chat box. So you can just click on that link and then you'll get an overview of what the training, what's going to, or our training session that will take place. 56 opportunities for members of governing bodies to be trained from, we'll start as early as the 15th of March until November this year. Chair, but I want to point out that the majority of provinces haven't yet published their election regulations. So they're still in election mode whilst elections are already taking place. So we start our training program on the 15th because the moment you're elected, you're also responsible. But I want to draw your attention and the members' attention to section 19.3 of SASA. The Act makes provision for or the responsibility to train is on the HOD in every province, but 19.4 makes provision that the provincial heads can use and the recognized governing body associations in the provinces to do the training. We do have the knowledge, we do have the capacity and ability to train SGB members on a huge scale. So we've got 3 phases. The one is a broad introduction into governance, and that's an open session. So the committee members, officials, provincial officials are more than welcome to attend. And then you have specific sessions for our members. We're excited about the quality of the production. We also have a book that we've developed with the previous Sgb election that is a guide for newly elected Sgb members. And obviously, it's crucial for every member of a school governing body to have the pocket statutes at hand, because that's the framework in which they must operate. So we're really proud. So there will be 56 opportunities for Sgb members to be trained towards the end of the year. Okay, back to Paul. Thank you.
Thank you. With your permission, thank you to Dr. Deacon. Chair, the next thing we're really concerned about is the future of education. I think COVID-19 and the lockdowns have been a huge wake-up call for education in South Africa, to look at new models, to look at new opportunities. And obviously, in those new opportunities, new models, technology, and digitization of education, blended learning will play a major part. I would like to ask the manager of our Center for Technology to very briefly just tell you about the initiatives that we have with regard to a new model, with regard to the use of technology. Mr. Rian van der Berg, over to you, Rian.
Thank you, Paul, Chairperson, honourable members and colleagues. Maybe just a brief introduction to the use of technology, which we have been a proponent for the last 5-6 years, to just cement ourselves in the age that we are living in. We're calling it living in the 21st century. The buzzwords of the 4th industrial revolutions are thrown all around us. But we're saying that we should learn as we live. Our learning spaces, our learning experiences should mirror our living experiences and living spaces, in using the tools of our time and not necessarily be hampered by custom and practice of the last 20, 30 or 100 years. Our initiatives include upskilling training, advising schools on the sensible use of technology in the classroom to enrich delivery, either in the classroom or any learning space, as COVID learned or taught us over the last year. Further, to use technology sensibly on the campus, that is by use of internet access, Wi-Fi, devices, labs for learners to get access to, as well as initiatives like cashless environments, online election systems and these kind of things. And then the last arena would be the productivity or introducing technology sensibly in the office, the administration space of schools. That's the big initiative that we are driving. The outcomes of that play into a fact that we have to address access. We need access to infrastructure, access to cheaper data, although the data prices has fallen, and then access to devices. A second big benefit of the world of technology is that of data-driven decision-making, and we propose collection of more and more data, granular data, similar to a lot of us possibly having something like a Garmin or an Apple Watch or a Sunto or Fitbit on our arms. We collect data as life goes on, and we don't stop and intervene to report on an incident, but it is collected as life goes on. A third leg of our experience is that of innovation. We should honor innovation, and we should create innovation hubs and champion schools and showcase schools where a community drives a specific agenda to say, let's innovate and pull the market towards us, and not hamper us with what I call the one-size-fits-all approach to education. There might be pockets of excellence that would drive innovation, and we should be open to that in the fourth industrial revolution. The last comment I want to make is that of the benefit of scale. Technology is a duplicator of note. None of us had to travel today, but we're all in the same meeting. We're saving lots of travel time and possibly huge travel costs, but we're all sharing the same message. In that background, we should use technology for the benefit of the scale and reach and viral nature it can have. And hence, we think that the best maths teacher for a specific learning outcome should be teaching more than 30 learners at a time and possibly more learners, and should be available more than once to duplicate the teacher's time, so that I think that the custom and practice, or the idea, the perception is it is only valuable while the teacher is teaching it live. But yet we're all used to something like DSTV Catch-Up or Netflix, where we re-watch it over and over again. So those are the comments that I would like to make about entering into the digital space, digitizing our schooling environment so that we can learn, teach, manage, and govern as we live outside of the schooling environment. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Rian, and thank you, Chair. Chair, just two issues that I would like to emphasize from my side. The book that Dr. Deacon has referred to, A Practical Guide to School Governance, was actually published by us in all 11 languages and is also available in the format of an e-book. Chair, finally, just with regard to the issue of funding, I think everybody will complain and address the question of funding. We know that this country is in trouble economically, and there will probably not be more funding available from the state side, from government side. But I think we need to start thinking creatively with regard to future opportunities for funding. One of the opportunities is, for example, self-managed schools. We call them self-managed schools. We've seen during COVID that there were schools, hundreds of them, that were able to survive and thrive under these difficult circumstances without any support from the Department of Basic Education. So those schools should be allowed to continue to thrive in circumstances that we know are very difficult from an economic and financial point of view. But we believe that we should also be creative with regard to tax rebates, for example, on school fees. Parents, after tax, also have to pay school fees, and that it's becoming increasingly difficult for parents and for communities to be able to do so, to sustain their schools and to improve the quality of education in their schools. So there are huge opportunities, we believe, that are available. that we should actually grab and take hold of them and look to the future to improve education in the country for the benefit, as we have said in our joint presentation, to the benefit of every single child in this country. Another issue concerning funding, for example, is we believe that the bureaucracy is too big and too heavy. And the bureaucrats, with all due respect to them, many of them, are not really contributing to the quality of the education in the classroom. Their presence is not necessarily an improvement to the education that the child receives and the teacher is able to give in the classroom. The money is not reaching the child in the classroom. And we believe that another creative and innovative manner in which more funding can be made available is to reduce the size of the bureaucracy, give principals and teachers more autonomy to do their own thing and within the framework, obviously, of the norms and outcomes prescribed with regard to the curriculum and the rest of the legal framework for schools. Chair, those are our contributions. We hope to engage on a regular basis in future with the committee so that we can address these themes that we have identified in the real depth and come up with solutions together with the portfolio committee and the rest of the stakeholders in education. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That was the presentation from FETSAS and NASGB. Is this now the next presentation?
Yes, Chairperson, I believe it is. We are next on the agenda.
All right. Okay, let's give to the GPF then. Over to you, Ma. You can proceed.
Yes, good morning, ma'am, and fellow committee members. I'm sticking to the instruction in our letter, which asked us to explain the mandate of our organization, what we saw as challenges, and what we thought would be critical focus areas for your committee. And so it is, that's how I've structured the presentation. I was also told we had 10 minutes. So I will endeavor to do what I was asked to do in some minutes. Thank you. As an organization, the slides move slowly. As an organization, our main job is to support and advise our members. And we focus on governance and management powers and functions and responsibilities that are given to them in law. We have members in all provinces, and we keep offices in 4 provinces. Because our work is primarily with grades R to 12 schools, we are sticking to that sector of education in our presentation. We have a slogan which we would like to think encapsulates how we go about our work. We always advocate a cooperative rather than adversarial approach. And there are 3 areas at which we do this. So often we have to intervene when there is trouble between school management and school governance. And we work to obtain a cooperative working stance rather than having an oppositional stance between management and governance. It's essential for the schools for those 2 parts to work really well. We also help schools work in a cooperative way with their education departments in the provinces. And then on a national and a provincial level, as an organization, we believe our contribution is of a cooperative nature. We do not want to go up in opposition to the policies that are being implemented. We want to see how we can make them work in the best interests of all children. And that is a key matter at the end of that particular slide, in the best interest of all children. Now, when it comes to education landscape challenges, I believe they're widely known by everyone. And in the presentation by the two associations that have just preceded, they have covered those education challenges, all of them in quite a lot of detail already. We've decided to focus on only 4 of them that impact on the functioning of schools as we relate to schools and endeavor to make governance work in schools. So the 4 areas that we have identified, and they overlap with what's been said by previous speakers: funding cuts and continuing inequality, competency and corruption problems, communication and consultation failures, and education as a societal issue. So let's begin with funding cuts and the impact. Inequality continues. How we operate currently, inequality continues. The funding model is not working to redress. No schools will suffer the most with the cutbacks that have been announced in recent weeks, and indeed in terms of the Minister of Finance and the budget, we see what's ahead. The infrastructure needs are still not being addressed. The COVID crisis brought attention to it, and there was some remedial effort, but it's not a permanent solution. We have the sanitation issues, electricity, internet connectivity, vandalized schools that MECs are struggling to put right because they say it's the community that ought to be responsible and take care of the schools. We need new schools in many areas because of migration into provinces. We have children still not accessing schools in an acceptable way because of lack of transport. And there are many children at schools who are not receiving nutrition because they are at schools not identified to provide those services. And so the schools out of governing body collected funds are having to provide the nutrition. Funding cuts result in teaching posts being cut and discipline is threatened. Without discipline, learning suffers. Too many children in a classroom, we know this is an ongoing problem, creates teacher overload and stress exacerbated by COVID conditions. Some provinces, the transfer allocations have been adjusted to cover COVID materials at the expense of other materials such as teaching resources, services, and maintenance. The 5 quintiles into which South African schools are divided aren't currently reflecting the realities. The assumptions made are faulty, and hence we have schools that are no longer able to sustain themselves previously as quintile 4 and quintile 5 schools, where governing bodies and parent meetings are wanting to turn those schools into no-fee schools as well, which will be an increased burden on funding. And then we have this problem, which we have seen through the COVID crisis. Access to online learning for all is not achievable in current circumstances. Well, ideally we would want it, and we can go about chasing it and finding the ways to get there. Right now, it's not a reality. So the funding cut focus for Portfolio Committee, this is what we ask, and it's a big ask. And I believe through the Minister of Education, it has been asked that basic education should somehow be given a special dispensation when it comes to the cuts. because we have to still deal with these essentials. So basically, plead for more money for this sector. And then to save money by cutting projects. Now, I have identified one project which my fellow SGB associations appear to value. And I would say we can cut the national standardized testing. It's the wrong time to test children when we have unequal conditions made worse by circumstances. It's an international debate raging at the moment. That money can be diverted to something more useful that will add value to children's lives. Testing is checking up on teachers. Testing has a lot of negative things behind it, which are inappropriate right now. Sample and piloting that doesn't bring in all the negatives is a possibility. We are very glad that virtual meetings are being held, and we support that. And if we can reduce expenditure through those meetings, well and good. And any other projects that don't add to children's lives. I do support what was said by a previous speaker, the bureaucracy that is top heavy. There may be an opportunity for cutting salary expenditure by reducing the number of people filling posts of people that are just go about checking with tick boxes and can't provide any additional support to the schools. So my next issue is competency and corruption problems. And again, I echo some of the things said already. Appointments are not always based on competence. The Volmink report on the sale of posts, the practices identified by that commission are still continuing in some places. And we do bring it to the attention of people who we would like to help sort it out. But the fact that it is still going on is extremely concerning. Then we have unfilled posts because we have a culture of disputing posts, and that is destabilizing schools. It is weakening leadership in the school because there is no one there in a principal's post, for instance. And it's opening the way for takeovers by groups with their own agendas. And these agendas are not in the interests of the children. They're often in the agenda of the members of governing bodies who have got on incorrectly with agendas to promote their own interests, including financial interests. So the particular issue of Sgb elections now, and mentioned earlier by the other organizations, we need the right people on SGBs whose best interest is the children. I've already spoken about officials, to many of them, but also we have people without the knowledge and skills to provide support and advice. Their job is not to go around with a schedule ticking, 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 and making unreasonable demands and giving wrong information and bullying. Their job is to help the school do better. And unfortunately, we see them more as creating difficulties. Of course, there's some excellent exceptions in all places, but too often we find the people who are supposed to be there to support the schools are not able because of their knowledge and skills. And when it comes to governance issues, I'm afraid at district level, there is very little information about governance that is correct, and schools are very easily ill-informed on governance issues. So for the portfolio committee, focus please on mobilizing to act against corruption or incompetence when it's reported. And we ask that you promote merit appointments based on qualifications and experience and in line with the Employment Equity Act. The third issue is consultation and communication failure. Sgb associations' ability to contribute to decision-making is undermined if consultation is not meaningful engagement. It needs to be based on timeless information so that we can give considered response, so that we can consult with our members to get the impact on the ground. We keep in touch. Our officers are all but one people who've been in schools and have lived through these things, and we can give input to ensure that what is put in place is not unrealistic. Without clear and timeless information, schools were left confused. During this last year, we did have information sessions. Some were mildly consultative, others were not. And then it took a very long time for the final decision to reach schools. And in between, it's governing body associations that the schools contact for information. I believe failure to consult and failure to communicate clearly damages the reputation of the departments because they seemed unresponsive or directionless or vacillating. And as we said, our job is to be a cooperative leader in the school governance areas. And we tried our best to support the departments. And I would like the rest of this year and the years to come not to be in the mode of permanent reactive crisis mode. We have to get to a situation where things are calm and we can plot our way forward. It is not all right to get a school calendar gazetted one day before the return of learners to school, and that's already 3 weeks after the original gazetted calendar's date for their return. So for the Portfolio Committee, please, we ask that you ensure public participation in schools through functioning SGBs. That goes along with the previous organization's request to promote the Sgb elections. We need advocacy. We need SGBs to be the voice of people in the community. And if they are to be self-managed schools, or we call them community-based schools, we would want that to be strengthened so that the people who are intimately connected with the schools can in fact have their voice heard and responded to. And that the communication should be timeous and clear, and that it should be in a tone that is acceptable. In the last little while, we have had reports of SGBs being disrespected, to put it bluntly. They have been ignored from certain processes, and it's just been handed to school principals. They've been ignored. And then sometimes when they query certain things, they have been threatened and bullied. And in fact, some officials think that SGB parent members are in fact extended employees of the departments, and that is not so. We would like polite public service, please. The fourth and last issue is education as a societal issue. And I think this sums up everything. The impact is, without it being recognized as a societal issue, we have poor education outcomes, the dropout rate is high, there is criticism out there that the matric pass rate is not the true rate. It isn't the true throughput rate, that's quite truthful, although I must say there is an improvement in that throughput rate. Our education problems stem largely from poverty-related problems, the inequality, the unequal distribution of resources in the country has an impact on education. That is a fact, and I believe the Department of Basic Education works extremely hard, as do the teachers in every school, to make up for a lot of these things. But we can't overcome the societal barriers. Schools rely on multiple citizen support structures and services from government departments, like IDs. Children need IDs. They need them to register for examination. If they cannot get them because they can't access it at their Home Affairs office, it affects education. Those children don't come to school because they're standing in queues. Documents for immigrants, there are so many rules about that, but the immigrants can't get these documents. The principals waste a lot of time trying to comply with the administrative constraints, but they can't. Police clearance certificates, which are needed now, also take too long. We can't easily register the teachers with SACE. The registration process is too long because they depend on police clearance and other clearance setups. We also need the health services to be strengthened. We have children who have hearing problems that aren't attended to when they're young, resulting in permanent damage. There are other health issues which affect the ability of children to learn. And I've mentioned some of the other things. Social workers, school does not know how to get help for children who have abusive parents, alcoholic parents, parents who disappear and don't come home. That support is given by teachers, and I do believe that is stretching the teachers' resources. And as has been said earlier, early childhood development needs urgent attention. The Department of Social Development and Department of Basic Education need to get on with this process of taking responsibility. And of course, with this comes the issue of the funding of it. So we want services speedily so that education actually can be done. So for the focus of the Portfolio Committee, we would like other government services, not the Department of Basic Education, but the other departments to function properly so that the connection between education and the other departments works well. And we, in fact, can do what we need to do in education. And then secondly, which affects every person in the country, whether a parent or a grandparent or a person without children, we need a social compact to support children. Everyone has a role, primarily the family, but the community as well. And the community needs to protect its schools and all the children who attend to it. If they see children in the streets, they need to work out why the children are in the streets. We need elders to help where children are not able to get help at home, a social compact. And my last slide. In conclusion, I would like to say our main problem as an association is not at the national level, really. It's more at the implementation level, when we have national law and policy, which is then taken to provincial level, and then further down to district level. The lower down in the system we get, the more difficulty we appear to be having. And of course, it's the districts that interact with schools. So that particular level of organization, district level, needs strengthening. Concurrent national and provincial legislative competence creates some difficulties because different things happen in different provinces. We are not against concurrent competence, but perhaps there are certain areas where we need national legislation and not provincial competence as well. And one of the areas possibly is the Sgb elections and functions, because as we've seen, we are already in the promulgated election period, and not all provinces have promulgated provincial measures or regulations for the coming Sgb elections. And then it is a last point, because we've only had the Lekgotla last week, and we are still processing it. My colleagues have referred to this and ideas that were raised in the matter. But quite honestly, I think our response to the Lekgotla needs to be a topic of a different, for a different day for this committee. Already the colleagues have talked about some of their initiatives which are addressing some of these matters, but I don't believe it was our brief to deal with that today, except to say we can't have a Lekgotla every year, which we've had for the last few years, and not change this mammoth education system in the country. We have to change. The world is realizing we have to change. Our curriculum is rigid. Our bureaucracy is tightly constrained and prescriptive. And in the new world, there has to be autonomy. There has to be space for professionals, for intellectual teachers to be able, with the parent community, to do what is necessary for their schools in their community, which will best provide the best education for those children going wherever they're going in their next stage of life. It's a big topic. It's my last bullet, but it's actually the biggest topic, but it's a topic for another day. So with that, I will conclude and thank you very much for the opportunity. We would like to have a bit of time after all the presentations to see what the portfolio committee members think of what has been said. Thank you for your attendance to this.
Thank you very much. That was GBF. Any association that has got a presentation ready?
Honorable Chair.
Yes. So we've got United Front from School Governing Bodies. Can we allow you to proceed with your presentation?
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, Chair. My name is Patrick Eric Mahlangwa King, the National Deputy Secretary on the association. We thank this opportunity given by the Portfolio Committee. The person that's going to deal with presentation is Mr. Peter Nteyo, the head of Sgb Capacity and Training and Research, also deals with governance and relations. He will be assisted by our president, Mr. Peggy Loma. I thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Chairperson. I don't know if do you hear me clearly?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you, Chairperson. Firstly, as my colleague has already appreciated the privilege that our Parliament has offered us as members of associations of school governing bodies. We highly appreciate this. It is always important when the government provides guidance through the necessary legislation. It does so that there is equity in the manner in which we conduct the business and ourselves. I would like even to thank all colleagues from different associations with their wonderful presentation. And we are all with them into this business, which is fair but yet complicated, which is schooling. Into our introduction, we have 15 slides, but we will try to run over them, Chairperson. Our introduction is like this. The key to making teaching about voluntary and participation effective is to return to a few clear central concepts and skills throughout democracy and the rights. In particular, when we mentioned the democracy, we checked into individual citizens really getting to influence decision makers and those in powerful positions where they are in government business, whether they are in government business or in public sector or organization, including political rights and duties such as right to voice your opinion, participate in campaigns, undertake political actions versus responsibilities to consider others' duties to be active rather than a free rider in society. At U for SGBs, we believe that everyone has the right to education. Education shall be free, at least in the basic or elementary and fundamental stages. Basic education shall be compulsory. Education shall be directed to the full development of human personality and to the strengthening of respect for human rights and fundamental freedoms. It shall promote understanding, tolerance, and friendship amongst all nations, racial and religious groups, and shall further the activities of the United Nations for the maintenance of peace. Parents have a prior right to choose the kind of education that shall be given to their children. Next slide. In putting together this presentation, we referred to many resources. The sources that we referred to include part of research, part of documents which were made available by the government of our country. During our presentation, that will explain it when the slides goes in a chronological order. South Africa's, here it is the conceptualization and background. We felt it is very much important to reflect on the background. South Africa's transition to democracy in its first ever free national and provincial election, that is in 1994, energized the newly elected government to institute reforms in its education and training system, characterized by equal access to education and training for all South Africans. That was a research conducted by Walters 2012-159, where he described the process as a commitment to equity and redress in a reconstruction and development program. And Khan 2005-39 also affirms by writing that the whole process of transformation was fundamental and increase access, eliminate inequalities, and abolish all educational discriminatory practice. Now we referred to three key programs or documents which underpin the design of new non-racial, non-sexist education and training system. Next slide. On this slide, we felt that let us begin it by referring to one of the Joubert and Brunsley quotes into his research, where he affirms that the interest of the Constitution, which affirms that citizens are looking up to the Constitution to protect either their rights, to protect either any exploitation through those who might infringe with constitutional issues. That's why we started by saying when it fails, when everything fails, the Constitution stands firm. And this is seen when we refer to Chapter 2 of the Constitution, and therefore its provisions must be adhered to and upheld. That is the Bill of Rights. While creating safe school environments conducive for learning is Sgb responsibility, policymakers bear the most immediate response for identifying potential constitutional infringements. Through cooperative planning and open communications, can all the conditions that breed school disruption be analyzed. Too often, officials facing school problems feel there is nothing they can do immediately to solve this situation. E.g., we have seen previously the racial cases previously reported in our schools. Now, we felt that when we put this together, there is another document that we found very important to include in our presentation. That is the National Development Plan 2030. And we outlined Chapter 9 of the document, which outlines the role of stakeholders in education. It states that the interest of all stakeholders should be aligned to support the common goal of achieving good educational outcomes that are responsive to community needs and economic development. If you could check the downwards, we have highlighted one of the quotes from Abraham Harold Maslow, where he says, if you have a hammer, you tend to see every problem as a nail. Next slide, please. So we wish to highlight that Sgb involves people, and it also involves active learning to equip them to take informed and responsible action aimed at making positive differences in their school and communities. Active learning is a technique or set of approach designed to encourage participants who are learners, our members, school governing bodies, to be actively engaged as they plan and undertake and reflect on their learning. Voluntary is usually an unpaid activity where people give their time to do something of benefit to others in the community or society. The best examples of voluntary involve students undertaking research about the role and purpose of the voluntary action they propose to take and evaluating their learning from the experience. This also reflects into the NDP, the role of the NPOs. The NPOs also, they could, by request made to the DBE, to conduct their own research, and through those research, come up with alternative solutions that could definitely help the education system of our country. Next slide. Lessons learned from COVID-19. The year 2020 was the year of many firsts, with countless lessons learned across the country for the education sector. Key issues for 2021 is to adopt lessons from the successful response to pandemic to other aspects of risk management within our schools. The following was learned. Schools that coped best were those geographically located in well-serviced municipalities. This includes your urban areas and excludes rural areas. The provincial departments, districts, and schools, which already had a culture of resilience and adaptability, and communicated with their stakeholders, making them feel valued. This bullet shows us that engagement with stakeholders, it is of much importance, because if they are valued, this creates a passion for them to participate in activities that they are assigned for. The most effective responses were those led by civil society organizations. Your Sgb organizations, your community-based organization, etc. We are able to bring back passion of our learners to participate in education activities. Key role players and decision makers have to identify where their roles had to change and take new roles to approach the new normal. Hence, we have the explanation of the generation that was born 2001 to 2010. That the time is moving and it is never waiting for none of us. There are children born after 9 November 2011 to 2010. And this is a generation of thinkers and of social interest and artistic sharing of information. Facebook and MySpace is some of examples that we have mentioned. The lessons that we have learned again from COVID-19 was the lack of technical skills. Not every adult has the same degree of technical experience or digital savvy. Similarly, not all online learning platforms are designed to user-friendly. When learners struggle to navigate the platform, the waste of time and energy that should be spent on learning will occur. The solution to this is to encourage service providers of networks to create simple tutorials that demonstrate how to use the organization's online learning platforms. Learners who dread the fully online experience usually appreciate a more personal walkthrough of the system, either in person or through a recorded webinar that they can refer back to. But there is also an element of boredom, as learners are people who like to make friends, to interact, and enjoy fun out of education. We will appreciate if also the providers will ensure that assessment difficulty level is, when conducting assessment, difficulty level must be eliminated to challenge and prevent boredom, but also not too difficult, so that majority of our learners can complete and pass them. Next slide. The National Development Plan 2030 and its impact on SGBs. SGB involves people, and it also involves active learning to equip them to take informed and responsible action aimed at making positive differences in their school community. Active learning is a technique or set of approaches designed to encourage participants to be actively engaged as they plan, undertake, and reflect on their learning. Why? The reason why we report that we emphasize these two bullets, it is because This is now time that we come up with a design of programs that aren't there only to induct our SGBs, to work specifically according to the cultural or old traditional way. These training programs, we believe, they must be designed in a sense that they places a learner at the center of the learning experience, enabling them to actively participate not only in their schools, but also in their communities and society, and to be resourceful and confident learners in all aspects and future leadership roles. This speaks to the NSDP 2030, the National Skills Development Plan, where also we will engage also with young learners who wanted to explore a workplace by volunteering their expertise after competency into organizations like ours, so that they must become future leadership. We also emphasize that this type of training, we have to check into them. Sometimes when we discuss this thing on other platforms, it seems that associations are suppressed in such a way that they are not people who could establish themselves into institutions. I like presentations of our colleagues where they demonstrated how far have they gone in designing programs for SGBs. Now, volunteering of SGBs in today's world, voluntary is usually an unpaid activity where people give their time to do something of benefit for others in the community or the society. The best examples of voluntary involve students undertaking research about the role and purpose of the voluntary action they propose to take and evaluating their learning from their experiences. We wish to indicate again that voluntary contributes billions per annum. It is vital for schools and learners during this pandemic. SGB members and associations had to make complex decisions during this period. COVID-19 is a revival of voluntary. Volunteering has gone visual and has opened opportunities to promote diversity. We have seen if the previous presentation where an association of voluntary force come up with innovative ideas of putting programs online where the learners, which is our members, they will interact on a webinar. Never doubt a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens, because they can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. That is a quote from Margaret Mead. Next slide, please. Madam Speaker, I will ask you to go to the next one. It seems for me we have dealt with this. Thank you.
Is your presentation now done?
Not yet. Not yet. I think we are on the slide number, I'm not quite sure. Go back a little bit. Go back a little bit. Yes. Active learning is the opposite of passive learning, where a learner is involved in the process of gaining and constructing knowledge. It involves new experiences, doing and observing, an ongoing dialogue about learning with self and others. Interaction with others is a key part of active learning. Active learning can but does not necessarily involve physical movement, but does require an active brain engagement with the issues. It is inclusive of all participants, irrespective of level of education they have, and contributes to equality of a learning opportunity and desired outcome for all. Our participation as Sgb Association involves acting together to achieve a change of benefit in society or to resist an unwanted change. Undertaking activities they have planned to address issues or problems of concerns to school communities. Members develop the confidence and conviction that they can act with others, have influence, and to make positive difference in society. At the bottom there, we found it very relevant to quote two documents which we think they had an objective when they were drafted. The first one is the Freedom Charter adopted by the Congress of the People at Cape Johannesburg on June 25 and 26, 1955. The second one, the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa, 1996, as adopted on 8 May 1996 and amended on 11 October 1996 by the Constitutional Assembly. Next. Here we felt that we must share with you the three different categories of leadership within the schooling environment and the interaction with other stakeholders. We have highlighted authority, responsibility, and accountability. Under authority, we have stressed the fact that this lies with institutionalized legal power that is put upon individuals in a particular function. Responsibility, a duty or obligation to satisfactorily perform or complete a task that one must fulfill. Accountability, to give or be able to give an account of one's actions to someone. On these three issues, sometimes they are giving us a little bit of a problem because some of authority will be given as a responsibility to the SGBs and yet be interpreted also as an accountability. And this has led to what our colleagues have alluded and shared with you, corrupt activities. Because we have experienced this, we live with schools where a school will be reported dysfunctional. Until the school was not engaging very well with the monitoring team from the district. And it ends up where its status it is removed from the leaders to the district level, where in some instances, the matters that were regarded as mismanagement of funds become worse when they are at district level. And this creates barriers for SGBs when reporting corrupt activities. Some of barriers is confusion about what constitutes a reportable criminal activity. Legal constraints on sharing corrupt activities information-wise. Contractors not reporting due to fear of jeopardizing contracts. Believe that nothing will be done in response to reporting an incident. Without accountability, authority can be abused and responsibility neglected. We have seen in some instances. The next slide. This is just the illustration, the diagram to illustrate what we have shared on previous slides perfectly. As you can see, there are 3 men there, and there is a leakage of a leaking water pipe there. The first man responded and said, "I can't believe someone just left the water running like that." The second one, "Yeah, I know it's really wasteful." But the third one responded, "Someone should do something. Who's responsible for turning off the water?" You will take some time to reflect on the examples, and as a leader, you will have to look where you fit, either on the first man, second man, or third man. Which one do you think you represent? And who is the one who is trying to bring together the solution on board? The next slide, please. The South Africa's Rights of Children to Free and Compulsory Education Act of 2009 emphasizes the importance of parental participation in terms of ensuring children's enrollment in schools and being involved. In conclusion, U4ESGB supports and advocates for 2021 Sgb elections. Briefly, we can share thoughts of what worked very well and where we experienced challenges. As we also repeat that education is a fair but a complicated business. But as those who are in it, like members of association, they will take time to explain it for you so that you have a proper understanding. It is tough even for a novice reporter to report on educational matters because that is complex issues. In closing, the children born after 2010 will be called Generation Alpha, hence the new beginning coming out of the old world and into a new era. What type of wealth will these children inherit from us? It will be up to us and how we choose to change our way of life and ideas to help guide them from our own mistakes. Thank you.
Thanks, Portfolio Committee, for an opportunity once again given to us as United Front for School Governing Bodies. And we believe and hope that we together we are one. Siyaqhuba Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee. Siyaqhuba ngoba sithunyiwe. This was our submission. We thank you.
Thank you very much, United Front for School Governing Bodies. Any other body with the presentation that is ready?
Thank
Which
you, Honourable
presentation
Chair.
is this?
It's Governors Alliance.
Oh, it's Governors Alliance. Okay, you can proceed,
Governors
ma'am.
Alliance. Yes. We would like to thank the Portfolio Committee for the opportunity to attend this session. We have flighted just the 2 items. These are not the only items that are of concern. So we do believe that there needs to be future sessions whereby Sgb associations have longer sessions maybe with the Portfolio Committee. We do ask for that indulgence, Honourable Chair. One of the highlighted items are the matter of infrastructure. Public schools are experiencing challenges with infrastructure, in particular the roofs of many old buildings and some relatively newer buildings. The challenge of the long lists of the infrastructure challenges in the provinces for schools needs serious attention. We are never sure how the lists work because sometimes schools never move up on the list, and we would like the Portfolio Committee to please look at these lists, because some schools report to us for 15 years or more. They've been reporting various challenges with infrastructure and they just never get attended to. We will just concentrate on the challenge of the roofs of schools that are not timelessly repaired or replaced. This can result in the building and classroom structure being compromised and possibly even condemned for occupation by learners and teachers. And we have seen in the media and we have witnessed with our own eyes some of the infrastructure challenges which need to be looked at very seriously by provinces. But our main concern is how the lists work, because nobody ever seems to move up on these lists. The governing bodies, school governing bodies, at the advent of the Education White Paper and the then South African Schools Act of 1997, it was mooted that SGBs would have what was referred to as self-managing schools. Over the last number of years, SGBs have had various powers and functions taken away. So we need to examine, does the SGB envisaged in the early 1997 exist today? The answer is the SGB today is not what was envisaged in the early days. The South African Schools Act has been amended 9 times, during which various changes to the powers and functions of SGBs have taken place. We appeal to the Portfolio Committee to look into this. We appeal to the Portfolio Committee to consider the upcoming 9th Sgb elections, which are currently taking place. Is democracy alive and well in public schools? Do SGBs get the required training for them to carry out their statutory functions as required by the South African Schools Act? We need to have SGBs that are democratically elected and that are empowered to engage with their roles and functions as outlined in the South African Schools Act as amended. Thank you. We would like to thank the Honourable Chair and members for the opportunity to be present today. We would also like to see if it's possible for the Portfolio Committee to have further sessions with SGB associations. It will be greatly appreciated. Thank you once again, Honourable Chair.
Thank you very much to Governors Alliance. Okay, now we've got Sarpa. You can proceed.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. As I introduced myself earlier on, I'm Mr. Shezi, Linda Shezi, representing Sarpa as the General Secretary, but also KZN President. Sarpa stands for South African Principals Association. And if I could just ask for the next slide, we are an organization that looks at the membership of principals and deputy principals from mainly public and primary schools and high schools, but we're also open to private schools and independent schools for membership. Sarpa is active in all 9 provinces, as you were then introduced to the 9 representatives from various provinces in the country. Each province has its own provincial structure, but all provincial structures belong to the national structure of Sarpa. Next slide. Our vision, Madam Chair and ladies and gentlemen, is quite simple, but I'll just start with who we are, just in more detail. We are not a union, which means that our membership and our members come from all walks of life. It could be any principal and any deputy from any of the labor unions. We are also, therefore, not a threat to any union in terms of what our mandate is. We're a Section 21 non-profit organization, independent and non-aligned, but we are a professional organization of principals and deputy principals. Our vision is to affirm excellent leadership and to develop professionally our members who belong to Sarpa. And this is one aspect, Madam Chair, ladies and gentlemen, which is sorely lacking in our country at the moment, which is capacity building, effective capacity building of our school leaders at school level. And this Sarpa hopes to address in the activities that we take in and perform year in, year out. Next slide. We recognize as Sarpa that our members are varied and they come from various provinces with various needs, but we are united as an association in providing professional development and ask of our members to conduct themselves professionally, and we strive to enhance excellent leadership in schools. Next slide. We have got quite a few objectives, Madam Chair, ladies and gentlemen, but I will just highlight a few due to time. I will not read each one out because you have been given this particular presentation. Our first and main objective is to provide opportunities for professional development of members and participate in policy formulation at department level by securing positions on relevant committees and task groups. We also participate in educational matters that impact on school leaders, which are principals and deputies. And one of our main objectives also is to extend our focus not only on local educational issues, but also look at what leaders internationally do. So we, as Sarpa, belong to the African Confederation of Principals and also the International Confederation of Principals, which we draw from time to time in allowing and capacity building our membership in thoughts that are out there internationally, so that we also align ourselves as a South African association. Next slide. Our vision is encapsulated in that particular slide, Madam Chair. Excellence, integrity, collegiality, transparency, and overarching all this is professionalism. We have a code of ethics that we subscribe to, but our code of ethics is aligned and outlined in the SAYS Code of Professional Ethics, which, as I said earlier on, we encourage our members to always follow at all times. Thank you. Next slide. Sarpa is based on 4 pillars. If I could ask for the next slide, please. Thank you. Our 4 pillars for Sarpa are linking with International Principals Association, connecting with the education department locally, collegiality amongst members, and also professional development. And this is reflected in what we do year in, year out. We exist in various forms, various levels, at branch level all the way to national level. and it is at regional, provincial levels where our activities take on more traction. So even though we have got 9 provinces, they each have an ability to independently design within parameters set by national their own activities throughout the year. Ideally, Madam Chair, and I would ask the Portfolio Committee to note this, we would like to see a funding model that will subsidize all South African schools to belong to a professional association for leadership development. At the moment, our members pay a subscription fee, which then limits the number of schools that can be members of Sarpa. We do believe what we have to offer as an association could be better served and have more impact if there was a better funding model that all schools are subsidized to belong to professional association for the development of leaders. Next slide. I've already mentioned, Madam Chair, we belong to, as Sarpa, 2 international bodies, ACP and ICP, which help us in promoting what we do as South African principles. And we have got various partners on the next slide that Sarpa is always aligned with. There's quite a variety of them. I will not read them all out one at a time, but the one that we have had very close links to in the past and more recently would be the basic Department of Education, and in particular through our termly engagement with the Education Management and Governance unit. We have meetings on a regular basis with that unit, which has made Sarpa have a strong link with the department. We have also recently with COVID had either weekly or bi-weekly consultations and or presentations from the Department of Education through the Director General and the Honorable Minister, where we have, as Sarpa, been part of those engagements and have had contributions on that level. However, we do have also our members sitting at various other partnerships, such as we have got members of Sarpa sitting at membership with Umalusi and also with provincial legislatures where possible. Our programs, Madam Chair, are quite varied. I will not read all of them, but in what we do, our activities are geared towards capacity building of principals and deputy principals. And this is one very, very key point that we believe Sarpa addresses. When members of the education department, in other words, teachers, get promoted to principalship and deputy principalship, it is a very key role that they play in leading their schools. And we find sometimes quite lacking is professional development once people are at that level so that they continue to develop and become better at what they are currently serving. And so Sarpa, in our activities, which are on the next slide, tries to address these issues of capacity building through our conferences, through our members having smaller, intimate groups of networking where they share best practices. And I want to also once again highlight the fact that due to the fact that our membership is through subscriptions, Madam Chair, our membership is very constrained because not all schools can afford. If there was, as I said, a better funding model for associations, what we do, the positive impact that Sarpa has would go a long way throughout the schools in South Africa. We also establish mentorship groups where our members can then talk to each other and be able to be capacity built and also assisted in their daily functions as principals and deputy principals. Next slide. As I said earlier, Madam Chair, that we as a national organization organize activities. One of them is an activity which is a national conference. Unfortunately, due to COVID, this was curtailed last year, and we are also concerned that this might not also take place this year. However, we have moved into a series of webinars with our, where possible, with our members provincially, and we are now starting to look at opening up to smaller intimate groups where we can carry on the function of Sarpa. Next slide. Madam Chair, as we conclude, I would also like to just say some of our achievements for this, the benefit of this forum. We have had and successfully hosted 2 international conferences thus far. We have also hosted successfully the ACP conference, African Confederation of Principals Conference. We have also been able to have our members invited by the DBE in 2019 to go to a tour of China to look at the best practices of schools in China, and therefore be able to come back and capacity build our members in our various provinces. If Sarpa could have more time with this particular committee in outlining where our concerns are, in conclusion, I would say one of the items we would highlight would be, we would as Sarpa wish for strengthened partnerships in all provinces, because we find due to various noise that happens at provincial level, some provinces and provincial departments are not very welcoming of Sarpa. So we would like the strengthening of that and the understanding of what we stand for. As I said, we are not unions, and so sometimes the people at provincial level mistake us as to what our mandate is. The second point that Sarpa would raise would be the funding model that I mentioned earlier on, which if we could address, Madam Chair, we would be able to have a wider membership and therefore more principals and deputies having an opportunity of professional development, which is sorely needed, and leaders of caliber are sorely needed at schools. The third point that Sarpa would raise, if we had more time, would be the zero rating of websites of schools, Madam Chair, purely because as we move through the challenges, we saw that digital education was one way of ensuring that the barrier of not having face-to-face was overcome. However, I believe that the Department of Telecommunications needs to come also to the party of helping schools to be able to use our websites in various platforms, to be able to also engage with our learners when they're off premises. And the final point that we would also, if we had more time, ask for, Madam Chair, would be the strengthening of psychosocial support for our learners and our staff. It has been highlighted mostly due to COVID, where we have needed this, but I do believe it is a problem that has always been there, where schools are left to their own devices in supporting members of their communities when there is a need for psychosocial support. This we would ask for it to be one of the targets and topics of strengthening going forward, where schools would require this particular kind of support. I thank you, Madam Chair, and I thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you very much. From Sarpa. Okay, we've got South African National Association for Special Education. You can proceed. Who's doing the presentation? You can proceed. Llewellyn?
Chairperson, I'm not sure where they are. I have the presentation. That's the last presentation. Sanase, I'm not sure if you are still in the meeting.
Who flagged their presentation? Is it you?
I'm flagging it from my side, Chairperson.
Oh, okay.
But I'm not sure whether they are still in the meeting, Chair. Otherwise, we have to move on.
Maybe they are not in the meeting.
I am in the meeting.
So,
am I audible,
we've
Chair?
been calling from. Yes, you are audible. Can you proceed?
Oh, yes, thank you very much. My name is Tandy August from Sanase. I'll be very brief. I'll talk to the slides. Some of these things have been mentioned, but the most important thing that's here is the historical infrastructure backlog, especially in our special schools and in our full service schools, which makes it then sometimes impossible for these learners to rehabilitate. I'll cite one example of one school where it was built in 1958, but still those learners, their beds are made of brick and mortar. And that's one example I will cite. So, but that's a critical area that needed to be taken into cognizance by the portfolio committee. Furthermore, there is a lot of tardiness in the appointment of therapists and social workers in special and full service schools. This again makes it very impossible to deal with the psychoservices of the schools, both the learners and the educators, including the support staff who are dealing with these learners with special needs in education. Of note again, Chair and the committee, is the non-filling of support staff vacancy. This makes the work, if a support staff resigns or dies, that post is not filled, which exerts more pressure now on the few members that are there. It strains the relationship between now the management of the school and the support staff. Further on, we want also, as other organizations have mentioned, we want an appropriate and continuous training of support staff. They form a vital part in the rehabilitation of these learners. And we want this training to be continuous and to be relevant to, for instance, if the school is for the CP, for the cerebral palsy learners, should be different from those of the blind and the deaf learners. So we want the training to be meaningful, to be appropriate, and to be continuous, and also to be externally evaluated as whether it can be accredited or what. Training of principals, deputy principals, and the school management teams in overall, especially around leadership and management. No organization can survive or can progress and can be functional if the leadership and the management of that organization leaves much to be desired. Therefore, continuous training is important. We have listed some of the issues that need to be trained on, especially on emotional intelligence, on curriculum management, on strategic planning, monitoring, and evaluation. These, we feel, are the basis of a functional school. Furthermore, Chair, we want to talk to the training of school-based support teams. We have found out that some or most of these school-based support teams, they think their only function is for them to go and place learners in the special schools. And as a result, they are, and this this school-based support teams seems now to be the responsibility of the inclusive education. Whereas we want to think that school-based support team should be a transversal kind of a team that only deals with the special needs in education, but all around as an overall thing in finance management, in leadership, and so on and so on. So we think that those teams are not transversal as we would assume them to be. Going further, Chair, the full service schools. I will combine that with the circular S4, which was issued out by the Director General, Mr. Matanzi Mangweli. The full service schools in most provinces, and in our province as well, seem to be the dumping ground for learners with special needs in education. One, there are no social workers visiting those schools, or clinical psychologists, or educational psychologists. The learners are not weighted there. And as a result, that affects now the PPN of those full service schools. Going further, Chair, I will refer the committee to the Western Cape High Court judgment. Sorry. Judgment, case number 18678/2007. I will not go into the details of that Western High Court judgment. It did not only affect the Western Cape, but it then was, the judgment was against the respondent, which was the Western Cape government and the national government of this country. That judgment was in 2010, but in most cases, that the elements of that judgment have just been ignored. They are lying there and not affected. In other words, then, it means that this government on the provinces are in contravention that and are, in contempt of that judgment, especially that it affects learners with severe to profound intellectual disabilities. This is a shame. Coupled to that judgment, then DBE, the Department of Basic Education, drafted a policy in 2016 for the children with severe to profound intellectual disabilities. That policy, 4 years later, in the 6th year now, it is still a draft. This we see that then says the department is not really serious about or taking seriously the learners with special needs in education. Of note again, Chair, we want to request the Portfolio Committee to assist us. There are learners who have been left behind, or their children have been left behind. And we feel that the Education Department is complicit in the exclusion of these learners. We are now talking about learners with autism, the autism spectrum disorder. Though the education of those learners is not taken seriously by this department and therefore government by extension. You find that most cases, the teachers, or the majority of cases, the teachers that are there in these supposed to be schools catering for autistic learners, they don't qualify, they don't have the autism qualification. That's why then we want to say to the portfolio committee and whatever, so that there can be a university qualification, so that the teachers that are already in practice can qualify to deal specifically with autism. And also those universities or colleges can also train teachers so that as they go out of, because you'll find that some of these learners are not necessarily in special schools. You'll find them that also that in the ECD levels or in the preschool levels, so that they can be early identification. That will be the presentation from the SANASE chair. We thank you for this opportunity for having presentation. And we hope that this will not only remain on paper, but will be effected. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I believe we are done with all presentations. Llewellyn, am I correct?
Correct, Chairperson.
Okay. Members, those are the presentations from the school governing bodies. Can I note hands of members that would want to have a bite in the presentations? Do we still have members in the meeting? I know it's Friday, so. Looks like there are no hands. Llewellyn, are you seeing any hand? No hand, ne?
Nothing my side, Chair.
No, thank you very much. I think one must just say to all the associations that have managed to be part of our meetings, we are wishing you well with your elections, your 9th elections. We trust and hope that they are going to go well in our communities. There was a cry in the first presentation that you don't hear noise of these elections. And I was sitting and wondering who is actually supposed to be making this noise, because raising this question as a parent, there has been letters from the schools that my children are attending to making us aware of the elections, the dates, and also the procedure of handling the elections. So I think it was the presentation of FETSAS and Sgb where they have raised that. But also there are about 2 presentations which have raised the issue of funding, and I want to say that we agree and concur with you in terms of the challenges of funding. And I think whatever association or any structure that actually depends on government financially would have to understand that all, would have to understand that all of us, we are supposed, or we are now in a situation where the little resources that we are having, we need to find a way of using them in a manner that that would make as if there is money, but though there is no money. It's unfortunate the economic situation of our country does not allow any more funding rather than the budget cuts that we are seeing. And I've also noted that in most of the presentation there is a cry to fight corruption in our country, which I think all of us, we are standing together, and we also agree that we need to be fighting corruption, all of us as the stakeholders as well in the basic education sector, where there is a need for us to fight the sector. There is a presentation that is raised, particularly in the issue of PPEs, just to highlight that we had meetings with all the provinces last year, and we were also trying to make sure from our side as well, how did the procurement of PPEs goes, went, and how did they utilize the funds that were there for the PPEs. Where there were issues, we had agreed that it would have to be reported to the relevant authorities, but where there needed to be investigations, we had also agreed that there needed to be investigations. But the one thing also that I'm interested in is, how are your relations as the governing bodies? Do you relate to one another? Are you able to sit alone without being invited by the department or any other person in a meeting like in this situation? Are you able to have your own meetings as the associations that probably, yes, have different mandates but have one objective? Are you able to sit together and see how can you amicably raise the issues that were raised? Like, for instance, the issue of DPE, which is a serious issue that we know as well. It was raised in one of the presentations, the infrastructure of our country. And the infrastructure is a problem that will always be there. It's always going to be there. It is not going to end now in our situation. But my interest is, are you sitting in your own time as the associations? How are your relations as the association? But also, as associations, are you able, because as much as we have raised the issue of psychosocial support for your members, but to what extent are you disciplining your members where they are found wrong, maybe by the school or by the district or by the province for that matter? To what extent do you make sure that you assist them? And in your opinion, what do you think the department should do to harmonize the relations with yourselves? What do you think would be better to bring a quality education in our systems? So those are the few issues that I thought I must raise with you as the chairperson of the committee. But safe to say that we have heard your presentations, we have taken note of them, and we are not sure if we would be able to manage it, but we are planning at least once or twice in a year to meet with the stakeholders, like yourselves. Wednesday we met with the labor unions. Today we are meeting with you. So it's meeting that we would want continuously to engage in with all the stakeholders. So I'm going to give now in the same sequence that we have presented, starting with FETSAS and NASGB, just to make a concluding remark, but in a way trying to speak to some of the issues that I have raised. One or two people to speak, and then we would follow in the sequence that you have presented to do the same as we are moving to closure of the meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
you, Chair. If I can respond to some of the issues. As FETSAS, we operate in all 9 provinces, and in those provinces where some of the other organizations are also present, we do collaborate with them, we do speak to them, and join forces in addressing issues with provincial departments of education. There are some provinces, Chair, where the systems are not working. FETSAS initiated what was called the National Consultation Forum, the NCF, in 1998 already, when Professor Sibusiso Bengu was the Minister of Education. We managed to establish that structure in collaboration with the National Department of Education, as it was then known, and the NCF was indeed established in 1999. Following on that, we tried to replicate that within the provinces with provincial consultative forums. Western Cape is functioning well. It took many years to get Eastern Cape going under the guidance of and with the assistance of the late Mr. Kojana, HOD of that province. We were able to establish a PCF there. We've not been able, we did initially establish such a structure in the Free State, not working. Working very well in Northern Cape, working in Gauteng, although it's under another name. There is regular collaboration between us and regular interaction with the Gauteng Department of Education. Other provinces are a problem. Northwest, Mpumalanga is doing okay. Limpopo is not functioning at all. So in terms of collaboration, yes, we do meet on a regular basis in a structured environment with the Department of Basic Education. I've just received a message. We are, have been called to another meeting next week. Some issues have been outstanding for many, many, many years that we've not been able to resolve. We've not received the necessary support from the Director General to resolve issues that have been referred to him personally. As far as infrastructure and the problems with infrastructure is concerned, we report that on a regular basis to provincial departments and also in discussions with the national department, but the execution level is at provincial level. And sometimes we are successful, other times it takes quite a lot of the effort to get the provincial departments moving with regard to infrastructural problems. So in terms of working together with the departments, there are serious challenges, as I've mentioned. Overall, we meet regularly with the department, but Dr. Seresto has also emphasized the fact that often we get the impression that we merely managed. We're not properly consulted. We're not heard on many issues, and we on many issues have difficulties in getting successful outcomes and successful responses. But we are committed to work towards improvement of the education in the country. We've emphasized that in the 4 themes that we have identified as important themes going forward in the education environment, and being creative and innovative in trying to get more schools to be successful. With regard to the issue of advocacy for the Sgb elections, it is true. It is true that, at least from our side, we encourage and provide advocacy material to our members. We give them guidance with regard to how they should conduct the elections, how they must make sure that they get as many parents as possible involved. But the complaint from our side is, as mentioned in our written presentation, a national task team for school governing body elections was established again at the insistence and initiative of FETSAS 10 years ago. And that was in an effort to make sure that we have a common understanding of the elections, a common approach to the elections, and common advocacy strategies with regard to these elections. But unfortunately, probably due to COVID, I assume, the advocacy campaigns from the Department of Basic Education, but in particular from provincial departments of education, have been lacking. In past years where we have had elections, there were huge advocacy campaigns from the department side. School letters, individual schools issuing letters, and many schools not notifying their parents about the elections, not encouraging their communities to participate. In those cases, we need to rely on the provincial departments to conduct the advocacy, and they have generally been silent in this year's election. There are exceptions. Northern Cape did quite well with regard to their advocacy campaign, but from our perspective, that's about it. We haven't had the noise, as it's been called, from the department encouraging parents to participate. Thank you, Chair. That's my contribution.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. In addition to what my comrade has already said, is that the noise that we are talking about is in terms of the mandatory the department has. The department is mandated to formulate regulations as dictated by South African School Act, Section 28. It is not the association that has got that power, it's the department that has got power. The department must lead in that instance. However, as I'm talking to you now, Chair, there are provinces that has never even bothered to change or to add the regulations. They just tell the provinces or the governing body and everybody to say, no, you are going to elect through electronic but without regulating that. So it's a problem to us. And in addition to what my comrade has said that. Now, at national level, the department has got right to have the national guidelines. We don't have that. They do that, then we'll support that. But if we just start, as associations, start doing our things, then there is going to be really confusion in the country. We must be led so that we become as a support structure. And that's why we're saying there was really no noise. And we're still saying that, please, portfolio committee, help us to direct that noise so that there must be really noise. The campaign, the parents must know. It's very, very important. I think this is the fourth, if not the third, largest elections in the country. And if we get this right, we'll all get all these others right. The November thing that is coming, the provincial thing, the national, if we get this right. But if we don't get the result, we're still going to have a problem with the local government elections, because these are the very same people that are going to elect. So we request the portfolio to intervene. We still need that noise. We still need that that noise, that vibration. We need it in this. But funding, Chair, just to be honest, is that we know that there is no money in the country. Even before the advent of COVID, there was no money. There was no enough. Let's say there was no enough money. It's worse now with COVID because a lot of people lost jobs. There are people no more working and all those things. But if that is the case, what about the poorest of the poor schools. And we can't be seeing those schools closing down. The rural, the deep rural, the working class schools, the townships schools, some of them are becoming empty. And parents are running to, as much as they claim that they don't have money, but we see parents now migrating their children to other schools and thinking that now there is where quality education is. And it's just a question of resources. So we want really these schools in the township, these schools in the rural, deep rural, this working class to work so that children, parents should not double dig. Then, when they go, they claim this side parents that they are not working, but they are able to pay the tax, the children transport that are transporting them to far away schools. So we want your intervention and we request that. But the fight of corruption, for instance, Chair, it is serious that the power of the school governing body, and the school governing body has only one power, the power to recommend, not the power to appoint, but the power to recommend. But I must tell you, Chair, that power is contested. It is contested by the observers. It is contested by this, what do you call it? The resource people. They contest these things. And we have given an example of a Folmic Commission, where it was said, go and investigate the selling of posts, the selling on all this. This thing is still going on. And we really would like, because the truth of the matter is that if you don't intervene decisively there, forget about the quality education, particularly in those categories of schools that I've mentioned. Because you also invite people who are not qualified to work with children, people who are not qualified to teach children, because they will go through that gap, and they see the gap and they go and buy these things. They buy the certificate, they buy the post, they buy everything, and only find that a person who does not have qualifications to become a teacher is a principal or is a teacher or is and all those. So we are saying, please, if you want South Africa educational system work, intervene. Lastly, infrastructure. Yes, we don't really, that we have got a case now. It's just one, but I think there's a case in Limpopo, there's a case in Eastern Cape, where it was highlighted nationally and all those things. So we are saying, really and truly, if you intervene in that, then so that as the objective of National Association of School Governing Body, that says to improve the quality of education and at public school and instill public confidence in public schooling. Instill public confidence. I think what we are saying is that now these parents must have confidence in public schooling. Chair, it is very disheartening to see Kuros coming into the township. I can give you examples where Kuros, the highly private schools, are coming into the township and start. When the township parents are claiming that they don't have money, but the Kuros are coming into the township. So it means then parents, community, society still do not have confidence in public schooling. So we request your intervention, your indulgence, Chair. Please, thank you very much.
Thank you very much to FETSAS and NASGB. Can we get now GBF?
Governing Body Foundation. May I speak, Madam Chair?
Yes, ma'am, proceed.
Thank you. Yes, I would like to respond just on 4 points. The infrastructure referred to by my colleague here, I would say we do have to take this seriously, and we need to focus on safety issues. There are some issues of infrastructure which make schools unsafe places for children. That cannot be delayed. So the priority must go there. When it comes to can we discipline our members? No, we can't. They belong to us. It's a voluntary membership, but we certainly have it as our main aim to train our members in order to act lawfully at all times in the interests of their schools and the children in them. So we spend a lot of time educating. There are some members that maybe we would like to evict, but we don't. Their schools are dysfunctional because they are not following what they need to do. But in fact, we invest extra time in those schools to help them get on a right footing again, because we do not want our schools to act unlawfully and not to be ethical in their conduct at all times. So constant training in order to keep them doing what is correct. And those schools that are fortunate to be able to employ extra staff need a lot of help also in adhering to other laws that apply to employment. Then the next thing is our slogan, which is the thought leader in cooperative school governance. That's what we work on all the time. We will cooperate and collaborate with organizations that are working in the field in order to obtain the best outcome for children. And we're not concerned only with children from wealthy families. We are concerned with all the children, and will work with all the stakeholders, the NGOs that operate in the education sector. If they hear things about any of our member schools that are not correct, we will work with them in order to assist schools to do what is necessary. So constant collaboration, constant cooperation with all structures in schools and in government departments and any civil society structure. And then my last point is I've been reading the chat line, and it concerns me the impression that this guest has of what's been going on in this meeting. And I would personally be happy to engage with this person and hear what the issues are and why the perceptions are as they are. But our organization certainly has members who are unable to pay the subscription fee, and we have subsidized memberships. We have schools that pay for other schools. There are always means to admit to membership schools that do not have the means to pay the high fees of organizations that we wish to help schools govern. I don't like the word to be the governance agent in the school, to allow for the participation of parents, to make sure what was intended in the law happens in the school. And we will help any school, and any school that approaches us and wishes to become a member in a province will be put in touch with an officer that can help them to do that. So I do believe that there is some misunderstanding, and I would like to challenge the assertion that our main role is challenging government decisions. And that is not so at all. We are consulted, we give opinions, we do not fight the decisions made by the provincial education departments or national. We consult, we give opinion. When it happens, we help implement it correctly. Misinterpretations are a matter that have to be dealt with. So the fighting of the privilege and not having any other agenda is not a correct understanding of governing body associations. Thank you. That's all I'd like to say, and thank you for listening to us.
Thank you very much. Governors Alliance.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. We would just to thank the Portfolio Committee for the session and for offering us the opportunity to be part of the session. We would also like to engage with the guests that put on the chat something that we find of great concern, because obviously the person doesn't actually know how we work, and we offer services for free. We offer services that might even be subsidized, and we offer training for free to anyone who wishes to, any school that wishes to attend. So I think we do a lot for the communities, and we don't choose who our members are. It's open, free to anyone who can't afford, and we also offer training for free to anybody. Thank you.
United Front.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We also thank this opportunity. As an association, we have already started in Gauteng to meet other associations. We have a committee, we have a team that deals with that of different associations where we sit and discuss governance issues in Gauteng, and we are on a process with other provinces to have a very similar a team that will discuss different associations. But now, you spoke of an issue of discipline for our members. It's a complex issue, madam, because it's an issue, some are labor matters in governance. You will find that in governing bodies, it's a clear cycle. Parents, educators, PS staffs. So it's employee on the department and ordinary parents as leaders in communities. Therefore, you will find that's why we are saying it's a complex issue. For we do have, as an association, a code of conduct for members that behave wrongly. So, and we have a way of disciplining them. But mind you that some of them they need an intervention in the department. They need intervention with unions, and it's a challenge on its own. It's a challenge. We know very well that when it comes to labor matters and other issues, it's a complex issue that also we request unions to give maybe a space to governing bodies so that they don't interfere in the governance issues while we are not interfering in their labor matters. United Front for School Government Bodies also have a desk that deals with community involvement. Our associations, after the elections, we were going to host educational indaba where we are going to focus on the results. We are not happy with the results that we normally get as South Africa. We need a serious intervention for parents to come on board to assist learners in an issue of give them also a space for learners to have enough time to do and revise. We are also worried in that we're going to invite the direct and indirect stakeholders, because the issue of burglaries in our schools, the issue of learner discipline, it's also complex. So we want to deal with that. We are also going to deal with an issue of in that we're going also to deal with a teenage pregnancy, because it's also giving us, it's also complex to understand that there is every learner has a right in education, but also we need to check how best can we support or assist in an issue of teenage pregnancy. Madam Chair, our big request to the Portfolio Committee it's if possibly so, I don't know how, if possibly so, the issue of qualifications, and issue of selling of posts. We hope and believe that as an association, if your committee can assist, maybe to have a desk or an office that will deal with grievances, and if a speed up processes. We understand that we have a labor office in every district province, but maybe that can speed up processes when we have a sort of, I don't know how to put it, when we become a whistleblower that we suspect or we felt that this process was not fair. As associations, we know that sometimes we have that right, sometimes it's skeptically so, but we believe and hope that with your assistance, we can have a desk or an office that will do that. But also, that will verify the qualifications. The speaker from NASGEP, the Secretary General of NASGEP, has also alluded on that. So we don't want to do a tautology on it, but if we can have a desk that really, maybe all teachers that are currently employed, maybe each and every 3 or 6 months, that once when we are going to prepare a post, maybe a verification desk where we can send this, can you verify 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and also the issue of fingerprints. Remember that now everybody that participate must take fingerprints. Also, we request the portfolio committee with injunction with the DPE that all the SGB members that are going to be elected on these elections, let be given a time we are going to take fingerprints for all of them for verification with subs, so that we get competent parents in the school governing bodies. That's our submission. Also, Madam Chair, through you, if we can have another meeting where we'll be able to submit other things that were not here. But I'll be not doing justice if we don't talk about, as an association, the issue of infrastructure. The infrastructure, Madam Chair, it's problematic. I know some other provinces, they are using the prefab classes, but if we can check the infrastructure, it's problematic, Madam Chair. I think the department, maybe the government, on their budget, they may add another percentage in the Department of Education so that we can have a proper infrastructure. And as SGP members and community members, we also going to engage the issue of to look after that infrastructure, because we need to save that infrastructure for quite a long time. But I think the issue of infrastructure, it's an issue of serious. And also the township schools, Madam Chair, some of the township schools that we visited are overcrowded. We need the department to look at it, the issue of learner ratio, because there's a policy that says 1:35, 1:40, but practically in township schools you find 1:65, 1:60 for foundation phase. And while we are going to talk or fight with one another saying our results are not doing well, we must also check the issue of learner ratio in classes, because it's not fair enough for a foundation-based teacher to teach more than 50 learners or 60 learners in a class. The issue of 1:1. But I understand because of this COVID, it also gives a challenge on this COVID, that if you have 60 learners and we are having on a class currently on these regulations, you must have 20 for instead. So you are going to have 3 classes and you won't be having a participation with learners. One learner that will go at home will come back after 3 or 4 days. He or she will forget what the teacher said before. So the curriculum coverage is going to be a problem, and it's going to be a problem. But that's our submission, Madam Chair, for the committee to look at it as we submitted to you. But the issue of infrastructure, it's serious, and we must check the lifespan of the prefab classes, because from what they said it's 20 years, but practically take 5 to 6 years, and and we are spending a lot if we're going to continue with an issue of prefabs. But we must find a way of getting a permanent structure that will last more than 30 years. That's our submission, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sarpa?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you hear me?
Can I just ask that we ask our President, Madam Chair, to do the wrap up? On my side, I really do thank you for this particular engagement. And I just want to highlight that as principals, we are the glue that holds both governance and management together. And as Sarpa, if we strengthen the role of the principal and capacity build our principal, our view remains very clear that we will be able to have very, very functional schools. But I will hand you over now to our national president to wrap up.
Thank you, GS. Am I clear, Chairperson? Can you hear me?
Yes, you are very clear.
Thank you, Chairperson. I want to also thank the Portfolio Committee for having created this platform for Sarpa, and which we really appreciate as Sarpa. And also the GS for having presented the information on our behalf, and all associations which were on the platform today, giving eye-opening matters, which I think are not only for them, because education as a societal matter involves all of us. We are all stakeholders, whether it is from governance point of view or management point of view, especially for principals at schools. Remember, in terms of SASA, Section 16, we know that the principal, apart from being a manager at the school, is also involved as an ex-officio member in the governing body to look at governance matters. Now, as Sarpa, we must also indicate, as alluded in the presentation, that we really enjoy the front seat with DBE, where we are normally invited on quarterly basis, even like the visual sessions that we normally have. And they are really appreciative of our contributions, and to such an extent that DBE has also inspired Sarpa to go out and check on how we can compile manuals that can be geared towards helping newly appointed managers in schools, looking at the issues of induction, looking at the issues of mentoring, because we've got experienced principals in the field who can also help in bridging the gap, in helping these members who are newly recruited to enjoy being managers within our schools. However, we have noted as Sarpa that at provincial level, some of the provinces have not yet come closer or come to the party in terms of accommodating Sarpa, to such an extent that even the memorandum of understanding with some provinces have not even been signed to recognize Sarpa as an effective stakeholder. But we know that with time, that will happen. Now, Sarpa has also gone forth to, currently what we have done is to compile what we call the skills audit, looking at skills that we are bringing as Sarpa members amongst ourselves, skills that can be utilized for the benefit of the entire leadership fraternity, where we can also look at people who can go to the extent of conducting research to inform the department on new issues or new dimensions that can be followed in terms of handling aspects within our schools. People who can bring skills of training, where we can also train, like I've alluded, in terms of manuals that we can compile and train our members so that we close that space where the department sometimes does not come closer to training our members. One matter which was left out during the presentation was the psychosocial issue, which we also appreciate at our provincial levels. We know at district levels that there are social service, there are also psychologists who have been employed by the department to offer or to help schools to work with problems that emanate with them. But however, we've realized that due to a shortage of manpower, sometimes it's not easy for the department to render help timeously. So as Sarpa, we're also looking at that and also presenting to the portfolio committee that we must also identify measures that can be very clear and simple to move closer to schools, especially during this time of COVID, where we realize that when teachers are within the teaching field, some of them come traumatized because they're also family members. Our learners are also traumatized. There's the issue of anxiety because they will lose parents, they will lose brothers, they will lose sisters. And when they come within a school setup, then effective teaching and learning is also affected. So the issue of provision of psychosocial services on an ongoing basis, especially for schools which are directly affected, is very key. So as Sarpa, we're also looking at that and also looking at other partners that can be brought forth in terms of helping schools to work with these problems. So we are really thankful and we hope that this session will also be held in the future, where we shall also come to bring on the table more eye-opening matters which can continue to help our country to move forward. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Can we now have Sanase? Sanase? Are they here, Llewellyn? Are they gone?
I'm not seeing them, Chair.
Okay. Now, in their absence, then, which means we have come to an end of this meeting. We have come to an end of this meeting, and I must take this opportunity to thank everybody that participated in the meeting, and thanking you for giving us your time, so that we as members of the committee as well can have a better understanding of who you are and how do you function as the governing bodies associations of our country. And I must say once again, on behalf of the committee, we are wishing you well with the elections. We trust and hope that they will be very successful, and we hope and trust that everything will be well with you in the future. And I like we have said, we would want now and then to meet with you so that all of us can have a better understanding of how do we build a quality education for a learner of this country, which I believe it's something, if we are putting all our heads together, we can be able to achieve. So without really wasting any time, like I have said, thank you, and thank you so much. The meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
It was a fruitful meeting. Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. An excellent meeting. Thank you, ma'am.
Thanks for your arrangements, Llewellyn.
Thank you very much, everyone. Much appreciated.
Thank you, everyone for the meeting.
Very fruitful. Thank you.
Luella?
Nepsi? Neps, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 apologies.
Okay. Yabo, Ngobo, Suker, Tembekwai.
Yeah.
And then no data and Fanevar,
I haven't received anything from them.
both of them, ne?
No, nothing from them.
Okay, fine.
So I'm gonna look. I'll speak to Chair now after this meeting. I need to just check with her what we're gonna do next week.
I think next week we are not having the Tabete.
ECD.
ECD. Is it ECD?
No. It was supposed to be ET Tabane,
Tabani, yes.
but we might. But I'll let you know. I'm going to end this session for everybody now.
Before you end, Louis, before you end,
yes,
did you
Portia.
take note of the chat column where comments were made to the chat column?
I saw the chat.
Recording purposes, yeah.
All right.
The chat column, the comments made there.
Yeah, I've seen the comment. Yeah.
Okay, I'll check with Carol for the delegation.
Just hold on. Let me just speak to Chair because the meeting for next week might be postponed for some
okay.
other reasons, and I don't know what we're gonna do. We'll see. But I'll let you guys know.
Okay,
I'm ending the session for everybody.
Yeah, you can say yeah.
Thank you.
And